Hi, and welcome to Bible Secrets, a contemporary podcast series about the origins, translations, and interpretations of the Bible and Holy Scriptures.
We hope you enjoyed this piece of art in the form of discussion, which was derived from hours of independent study and a burning passion for seeking truth and wisdom.
We speak freely on this podcast, so there may be language that's not entirely suited or agreed with everybody, but it's meant to be fun while it's also educational.
Please like and subscribe, share, and help us reach more people and inspire conversations that can both be hard but necessary. This is Bible Secrets.
Hell yeah! Let's go.
I wanna know what the meaning of life is. I wanna know the cost of your faith.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Bible Secrets, presented by Fehr the Burn. I am your co-host, Chandler Fehr.
And I'm Cougar Coburn.
And we're on this series right now.
I would actually say we're on a roll right now. We're rolling, baby. We're rolling.
I would agree, Cougar. I think that we are rolling.
We are rolling
with a ball
with a ball
on a ball
for millions and billions of miles
in the space of nothingness.
in the space of nothingness, in a vacuum.
Really, we don't mean anything. We're so small and so tiny
Just a speck on a speck.
that as we go through these Bible secrets, it's hard to say why God would even care about us. If we're so small, if we have zero significance to the actual universe,
And if there's alien life everywhere that you could go find.
why would God care about us? Why would he send a savior to redeem us? Why would we be the only species, right? Like a lot of people believe that, like you just said.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's aliens all over, but the Bible doesn't really teach that.
No, it doesn't. And the most important thing when you're reading this in terms of how I've approached this is that I need to try to take away my preconceived notions of things that I know in order to be able to intake the Bible. And so if I truly will not budge on someone not, or like I don't think it's possible at all, no matter what anyone claims, that someone dies and comes back to life, if I don't take away that preconceived notion, then I'm going to struggle with the Bible. And so for it to be able to teach me, I have to take the notions that men have taught me, and again, I don't know which are right or wrong, and try to just look at what this book is saying.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all sorts of layers of Christians, okay? You have Christians that say the Bible is good, it's God's word, but it's been manipulated and it's been skewed, so you're going to find errors within it, and it's all good because, obviously, it's over time it's going to happen. Then there's people who say that they take the Bible as the literal word of God, the infallible word of God, and that has no contradictions, it has no errors or anything like that. And then you have people that kind of toe the line a little bit. And what I mean by that is so let's just jump right into fucking Genesis, dude. I will have people tell me, and this is all based on if you believe in the Bible right now, because we kind of dissected if you're, being on the outs and stuff like that. And so this is getting heavy into people who actually are taking this word seriously.
Well, not even that. It's just, what does the book say?
Right. What does the book
even if
actually
you
say?
don't believe in the Bible, does the Bible preach? What does it say about our universe?
What does it literally say? Not what I think it says. What do the words say? And you get into Genesis 1, and it gets crazy real quick. And so a literal Bible believer will say, I believe that the world was created in 6 days and that the earth is 6,000 years old. They'll have no problem saying that. And again, when you look to the context of the Bible, there is an argument that the Bible is making this claim that it's about 6,000 to 8,000 years old or whatever. But the amount of man-made science, whether wrong or right, I don't know, you would have to toss to the side to say, no, you know how you say it's 4.5 billion? I think it's 6,000. It's a big, bold claim.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a crazy claim, I would say. But I am very skeptical of human science. So, fair. but I would have no way of proving that the earth is 6,000 years old, right? Or that it isn't. So when I run into that with a Christian, they say, well, you have to take your preconceived notions of things and put them to the side and read Genesis for what it says. And I say, okay, I can do that. Before I was reading my own notions into it, let me put my ego back and just say, what is this book saying? So let me pull this shit up for you, Chan.
Real quick,
Yes,
as
sir.
Cougar's pulling up his verses real quick to kind of dive into the biblical universe, I just have a quick question for you of why are you skeptical of of science?
That's a beautiful
of
question.
man-made science.
Because I think that humans are limited. I think that humans live for themselves and try to survive for themselves and their family. Game of Thrones kind of presents that with the royal families and how everyone's just, like you're going to take care of you and your people. And I'm going to take care of me and my people, and you're going to take care of you and your people. You know what I'm saying? And so I have to respect that because I do it. But when you're in huge positions of influence and you make a true statement, I can make a true statement, no one cares. Or maybe two people.
Mm-hmm.
When you are an influencer or you are a prestigious scientist who is talking about theoretical things and speaking of them as if they are fact, that's where it gets me. So like evolution. I went to the University of Utah. They have this beautiful fucking museum, and they had human origin, human evolution, right? This huge wall. And bro, they have a skull right here and then a skull right here. And like it's going linear, right? And there's like 100 million years between one. And it's like, that's just, you would have to have a lot of faith in the work that has been done for them to have the knowledge of 100 million years and that they could predict that correctly and that these two correlate with 100 million years correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Again, right or wrong, I don't know. But damn, I have to have a lot of faith in whoever put that together. And that's the same thing with, there's three. What are the three? There's space, evolution, and, the age of the earth. So again, like when it gets into the Big Bang Theory, I would have to have faith that that was something that was real. I can't know. And I used to think that I knew. I used to say, well, I know the Big Bang.
Mm-hmm.
The real realization is that no one knows. You would have to believe in whoever came up with that theory, the evidence that they put forth. You'd have to believe it. You can't know it. You'd have to believe it.
Having faith.
Having faith. And again, that's fine. I'm not telling anyone to not have to you believe whatever the fuck you want. I'm not saying anything like that. All I'm saying is where I'm coming from in terms of as I've gotten out of high school and I started to become aware of the political game at hand. That was when I was like, yo, the people who will literally look me in the eyes and say, I care for you, don't give a fuck about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anyone can disagree with that, really. I mean, I saw a video of Hillary Clinton giving a speech and this woman like sobbing because she was so moved by Hillary Clinton. And it's like, that's a victim right there. But that's where I see like these people can be predators and they will use their positions to benefit themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that stop? I have no idea.
Right.
Pop open the Epstein rabbit hole. Where does that stop? Where does it stop where people are just doing whatever they want to the fullest extent? How bad does it get? Epstein was a pretty bad, and I don't think he's the face. I don't think he's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of Christians say that evolution comes out and it's a knock on Christianity because it's going against Genesis, right? Because Genesis is claiming that two people were made, boom, like that, not evolved from something less than, and science is saying that it isn't. Okay, you have a contradiction there. A lot of pastors, so it goes back and forth of like skeptics to pastors will say science and the Bible, they go hand in hand. I don't know what you're talking about. And so then that gets into, well, how do we interpret science? Because you'll say science as if it's all the stuff that we agree on, but obviously the mainstream science does not say what Genesis is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Very obviously, it contradicts it. And so with these two in mind, Christians are very willing to give up these two. And I'm not coming at this as a skeptic, and Chan knows this like full-heartedly. I'm not coming at this as like trying to expose anybody, which is funny that that's what it's sounding like I'm doing. But there's a third aspect, the unholy trinity, if you will.
Okay.
You have evolution, which takes away human origin from Genesis. This is speaking from a Genesis perspective. Evolution, and then takes away the specialness of humans. We're just animals. You have the age of the earth, because if the age of the earth is 4.5 billion years old, and evolution isn't real, but humans came on here in 6,000 years ago, that doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't have both of them. You know what I'm saying? You can't have the science mainstream and the Christian perspective because they contradict. But then the last one I have started to see is space. I can't find anything that talks about space in the Bible, okay? And some people may say, well, they didn't have to talk about space. And some say they talk about it in Genesis. I would push back on that really hard. And let's start this off with me just identifying what I think the Bible is going off on in the beginning, okay? Or not even necessarily in the beginning. This is just 3 heavens, okay? So we have 3 heavens. Revelation says, I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls in the midst of heaven, all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the sky, right? Birds fly in the sky. They don't fly in space. They don't fly where God is. They fly in the sky. So that's one level of heaven, and I wish I had like a whiteboard, but this will do.
You literally have a whiteboard behind you.
Yeah, but I can't draw. I can't draw.
So you have the first heaven, which is essentially like it's the sky that they see.
Yes. Okay. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed in the midst of heaven. The sun stood still in the midst of heaven.
I want to read this whole verse just for a second.
Go ahead,
and the sun stood still, because it's something for like later for in the next episodes. And the sun stood still. This is from Joshua 10:13. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. This is referring to the Battle of Joshua, probably. When the sun stood still for 24 hours. So it stood still, and the moon stayed until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is it not written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven.
Yes.
So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven. That's what you're talking about.
Yes,
like in the sky.
exactly. Yep.
And haste did not go down about a whole day.
Yep, exactly. So there's this concept of the sun and the fowls being in the midst of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then where's my heaven number 3 right here? Heaven number 3, which is where God dwells, which is the cliche, stereotypical thing that someone thinks when they hear the word heaven.
Mm-hmm.
That's heaven number 3. And people say, oh, you sound like a Mormon in this. This is like literal physical locations, I think. Corinthians 12:2. I knew a man in Christ above 14 years ago, whether in the body I cannot tell, or whether out of the body I cannot tell. God knoweth. Such an one caught up to the 3rd heaven.
To the 3rd heaven.
So he was taken up to the 3rd heaven, came back, said that the things that he saw he couldn't speak of because they surpassed human vocabulary. Like it's not lawful to speak them, I think is what he said. But it literally defies the laws of what you understand to see anything like that, to go to the 3rd heaven.
Right.
So we have heaven number 1.
The sky.
The sky. You look up, the sun is in the midst of it. So that's space, some people will say. But the fowls are in the midst of it. So some would say that's anything that we see above us all the way to the edge of the universe.
But I ain't never seen no sky bird, so no space bird.
I've never seen a space bird
Never
either.
heard of a space bird.
I never have either.
Just throwing it out there.
So we have a heaven number 2 here. And this is called the firmament. And we will get into the translations and the discretion between translations of the King James Version versus the ESV, the NIV, all these more modern ones. There's some verses where they're not saying the fucking same shit.
There's differences, man. And that's a big, I'm going to pause this real quick. That's a big contention that a lot of Christians hold. And for a long time, me as a Christian held, just saying there is no difference in translations. When you really break it down, and Cougar was the first person to show this to me, when you look up verses and you go online and you say, what is this verse? It'll give you all these different translations. Read those different translations, and at times, they for sure say the same thing.
Yep.
But there are other times where they will say completely different things. So there is different translations to the Bible.
Absolutely. And these books are really helpful to help you understand when the KJV gets very fucking British or whatever they're speaking there, gets very Shakespeare. It helps you break it down. But to rely on these more modern ones as the word, the same as the KJV, again, just like other religions, when you have two books that are saying different things, they can't be the same thing. That's all I'm saying.
And a lot of modern Christians will say that the NASB, the New American Standard Bible,
Right.
is the closest to the translations.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
But the thing about that is, like, there is still stuff that I've noticed for that, because I grew up in an NASB church, where that's the Bible we used. But there's things I've noticed where even comparing that to, I read the NKJV now, the New King James Version, which is still, it's a little bit more modernized than the King James Version, because the King James Version, like you said, is very Shakespearean, very old language. And NKJV and KJV are pretty close, but there are some times where even the NASB is just in a different ballpark. And the firmament, which we're about to get into, is a big part of that.
Is a huge part, because these... Okay, so firma means solid. I'm just looking at the word translation, man. Firma means solid. Ment, M-E-N-T, is the end of a word or something to describe it's a thing. So you're saying this is a thing. There's a firm thing. And so let me pull these verses up. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So then we get a location. Then I looked, and behold, in the firmament that was above the head of the cherubims, there appeared over them as it were a sapphire stone, as the appearance of the likeness of a throne. So the throne, which is in heaven number 3, is above the firmament, okay? Above, literally above. Literally above, that's what this is saying. Above the heads, okay? A firm thing that is above the heads of the cherubims, and the cherubims are up in up in the sky, or like they're like right under the throne, actually.
Do you know if they're in heaven 3 or not? I mean, it's probably pretty hard to tell where.
Well, from what this is saying, the firmament that was above the head of the cherubims, and that gets into like what stars are. That's something that we might have to talk about too. Of like, cherubims are angels. They use the word star for angel as well. Like, so, and that gets into if this world is different than what science is actually saying it is, then there's a lot of things to talk about. And that's like the stars come up for question. But right now, we have a solid firmament. And again, so let's go to these translations in here. So we have all of these. So we have one that says it is high as heaven, and it's referring to heaven number 3. So there's a height to it.
Because it's going up.
Right. There's a height to it. There's not infinite nothingness into another dimension. There's a height to it. Faith saying that. Okay, so here's one as well. Who shall ascend into heaven? That is to bring Christ down from above. So again,
ascending.
This thing is talking about literally above our heads and down to our heads. You know what I'm saying? And so what one that's really interesting is that you get into the dome vocabulary. So these are all taking the word firmament, and for some reason, these Bible verses or translations translated it to a dome.
Interesting. The New American Bible, and this is 1:8, yeah? This
1:6.
is 1:6. Can I read the New
Absolutely.
American Bible?
Yep, go for it.
Then God said, "Let there be a dome in the middle of the waters to separate one body of water from the other."
So that's like, okay, the sky looks like a dome. Who cares? Well, the dome, when we go back to what this was talking about with the firmament, there's right here. Has that, Job 37:18, has thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong and as a molten looking glass. All those other translations as well are talking about a strong sky, a solid, firm, glass-like sky. It's not literal glass. It's glass-like. So you're not taking it literally and saying, oh, it's molten looking glass. That is the firmament. It's something that's like that as a molten looking glass. Okay?
As opposed to earlier in that verse where it says, which is strong. You see what I'm saying? Like, he's saying it's strong like this.
Yes.
But it's definitely strong. It's definitely firm.
Right. Yep. Because it's strong. And so what does strong mean? What does that even mean? Well, if it's a firm thing, then it's a strong, firm thing that holds up the waters above. Because that's what Genesis gets into. So you run this through 1:7, God made the dome, and it separated the water below the dome from the water above the dome. Pretty simple.
So there's water below the dome where we are, right? Because God says that he came and he separated earth from water.
Yes.
Clearly, and this is all in Genesis 1.
He separated water from water. There was only water, and then
Originally, he separates earth from water, like in Genesis 1. He says he separates the earth from the water, and then he separates the waters below from the waters above.
Okay, yep.
Right? Clearly saying there's a difference between earth and water.
Right. Well, technically, what he put in the water isn't earth; it's the firmament. He put the firmament in that divided the waters from the waters before any solid ground or any earth came up at all.
You sure?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Let's jump in it.
Let's just go to Genesis 1. Because what I remember is God made the heavens and the earth, and then he separates the earth from the water, and then he separates the waters below from the waters above, which, okay. So can you just go up? Yeah. Just to...
So he made the earth and the heaven in the beginning.
And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the earth, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. This is verse 3. And God said, let there be light, and there was light, and he saw the light was good. He divided the light from the darkness, so that's the first thing he separates, showing that God is separating good from evil. God called the light day, darkness night, evening, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, you're right. And then let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. So the first thing he separates is waters.
Well, because to have anything in the middle of water, you have to have a barrier so something can exist within that water. And so you have a dome, according to these Bible translations, that is solid, that is doing this, that is holding it up.
Wow.
Job 22:14. You think the thick clouds keep him from seeing as he walks on the dome of the sky? And on top of, so the dome is the second heaven, and where he's walking is the third heaven. That's where he dwells.
Right.
And then Ezekiel, and above the dome over their heads, there was something like a throne in appearance like sapphire. So that's what we were talking about. But they said firmament. Like a dome made of dazzling crystal. Above the heads of the creatures, there was something that looked like a dome made of dazzling crystal. Okay? That's a description of something that's beautiful, as well as a crystal is solid in my experience.
It's not necessarily, those two verses aren't necessarily saying it's a dome. It is saying it's like a dome, but there are other verses that are saying that it is a dome. Yeah, so it's kind of... Yeah. I see that. I see what you're saying.
Yep. There was something like a dome. Because, it's not shining like crystal. It's strong. It's firm. Then God said, let there be... Oh, yeah. That got cut out. Oh, no, it didn't. But yeah, so
God separates waters from waters.
The waters from waters with the firmament. And then what's interesting is that all these Christians will say that the flood of Noah was the waters above coming down. Okay? And so that's... that takes... So then that means that there's no more waters above. And we have biblical waters right here.
And you've said that this is called canopy theory. Is that
this is the canopy theory? There's a canopy that allegedly was surrounding the earth that gave the earth like a greenhouse effect, so humans could live for hundreds of years because it was so perfect. And then God said he was going to flood the earth and told Noah, and then the canopy broke, flooded the earth. But now there's no more canopy up there, obviously, because we've flown a rocket to the moon and we didn't go through any canopy of water. But
allegedly.
But the interesting thing is Psalms, in a post-flood context. And I'll bring this up right here. Psalms
148:4.
Praise him, ye heavens of heavens, and ye waters that be above the heavens. Okay? So if they said this in a post-flood context, they'd be wrong if there was a canopy that disappeared. And so then one of my friends just said, well, maybe there must just be water out in space. It's like, yeah, that's a really convenient answer because that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
These are talking about, they're praising the waters above the heavens. These waters are special and amazing. And, again, like for Noah to even have experienced that flood, it says that from this firm dome, gates and doors opened and allowed the water to come in. That's what this is talking about. So again, if we want to take a preconceived notion of scientific basis into this, we will struggle with evolution, we will struggle with the age of the earth, and we will struggle with space. Let's keep going a little bit here. Do you have any questions? What are you thinking here?
So far we've really only talked about waters that I've seen.
And heavens.
And heavens, that's
Yep.
true.
And so that takes us right into where is God?
Okay.
So God... Who shall ascend into heaven? So we did that one.
And that is what Jesus did. At the end of the Gospels, he literally ascends into heaven, I think, reaffirming.
And that goes up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He goes up. So did he just float into space? No, he went up to the third heaven. He went back to the throne.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Reaffirming what you're saying.
Exactly.
I believe. Yeah.
And right here. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. So this is the return, we beseech thee, O God of hosts, look down from heaven and behold. Okay, so where's he looking down from? The fourth dimension? No, he's looking down from the top of the firmament where his throne is. Shall look down from heaven. So the Lord looked down and behold from heaven.
So God is above us.
God is above. And so people will say that and believe that, but then they say, well, yeah, but there's space. So it's like, well, above is relative. There's no above.
Mm-hmm.
And so when these guys are saying that, it's actually below me if they're on the other side of the earth, and they say up.
Right.
Because up is that way. Up is that way. And down for them is that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so again, people will say, well, they're just writing this from their perspective of the world and their culture and their understanding of the world.
And they didn't understand that we're
and
on a
they
ball.
didn't understand. They were stupid. Okay, that's fine, but we're no longer in the infallible word of God. If these inspired people, we could just say, yeah, they didn't really know what they're talking about at times.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, right here. For he hath looked down from the height of his sanctuary. From heaven did the Lord behold the earth. Look down from the heaven. Look down from heaven. I mean, they keep going, bro. They keep going.
Yeah, it is kind of getting at something being above
Going up and down.
all of humanity.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Like not just some where it's like he's above all of
He's
humanity.
above everybody, and that's above. For everyone above, they'd have to look up. And so that's also, it gets into, the quote is, every eye will see when Christ comes back.
Mm-hmm.
When the heavens will open like a scroll, and every eye will see. And people say, oh, well, like TV and phones and shit. And it's like, bro, the second coming is not going to be broadcasted on fucking CNN. You know what I'm saying? Allegedly, what may happen is that everyone will walk outside and look the fuck up and say, oh shit, there's a guy coming down from heaven.
And that's something I wanted to bring up with you too. Now, if we are on a ball, right, we have different skies.
Yes.
Right? Like, it's pretty undeniable that it's, we live in Boise, Idaho currently, and I have some friends who are in England, and I think England's differential of time is like 7 or 8 hours. So it's currently about 7 p.m.-ish that we're recording this, 6, 7 p.m. So for them, it's like completely in the middle of night.
Right.
Whereas in the Bible, it does say, I think Revelation 2, it's, even Revelations 21:2 right here, it says, and John saw the whole city, New Jerusalem, coming down from heaven out of earth, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. It says that Jesus will come down. So it is that we all have the same sky.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
that is what they're getting
and
at.
we have different skies to people who are in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Exactly. So that's where God is. That's where God is there's verse after verse after verse after verse telling us that he's right there, that he sits on the circle of the earth and looks down on his inhabitants like they're little grasshoppers in an enclosed, firm dome that he is walking on. He's walking on it. He's sitting on it. He has a throne on it. Christ goes up to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, kind of scary. It's kind of scary when you get into this.
I see what you're getting at.
Because it comes down to, okay, who we gonna put our faith into? For a diehard Christian right now. You know what I'm saying? Like when this text is saying this, are we going to say, well, no, science says this. Okay, well, I tried to do that with evolution and that was a no-no. Why all of a sudden is it okay to do it with space?
Well, that's making your book and your religion relative as well. I would say.
Absolutely.
Because you're saying, well, yeah, they
Abso-fucking-lutely.
just kind of knew what they knew, and like now we know more, so like we're doing this. So you're arguing for relativism in that.
And now that we know, we can just read this creation story as more of an analogy when it's supposed to be a literal 6 days, a literal creation.
And that's something that I've talked to you about, where I personally view, and I'd love to get more into the foundations of the earth and pillars and all things
Absolutely.
like that. But I think that you could make an argument that Genesis is, especially the earlier you get into Genesis, is more of a narrative book, less of a factual this happened, because and even if you take the Christian perspective on it, that Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible,
Right.
aka the Torah. In those, you have Genesis, and Genesis is the only book that Moses isn't actually alive for. So I think that Moses' accounts are going to be a lot more accurate if he really did write the books in Exodus on, because he really lived during those times.
Right.
His stories told them there and whatnot as well. Whereas the earlier you get, more kind of wild things happened, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You have, Adam and Eve, talking serpents, getting kicked out. You have floods, all this sort of thing. So I do think that there is an argument that you could make for Genesis being a more narrative text.
Absolutely.
And especially when you look at, to me, the Garden of Adam and Eve and who the first people were. It's Adam and it's Eve. And if you really break down those words and what they mean, Adam means man or mankind.
Right.
And Eve, the original word for that, which I'm not sure what it is, means life.
Oh, okay.
So to me, what that could be meaning is God created man life, human life, right?
Right.
And that we are destined to sin, not necessarily because, and this gets into, a lot of Christians probably wouldn't say this, but I have met some Christians who believe that Adam and Eve are more figurative than literal.
Right.
But I think that whole story is really more of a parable for saying that even if God gave us one rule to follow, don't eat of the tree of good and life, we're gonna do it,
Right.
Because we're humans, and because we want to feel ecstasy, and we want to feel great, and we want to have all these chemicals and emotions running through us, because that's what makes us feel good.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And we're going to listen to Satan, even if God gives us the simplest commandment. And that's why we need God, because God knows better than we do.
Right. I've heard a lot of people say that, and there's big million view pastors on YouTube that talk about this. So that's it's fairly common, I would say. But the argument that I've heard against that, so it never ends. But
I hear you.
They talk about how when you compare like parables to Genesis 1, you're getting this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. You know what I'm saying? Instead of saying this happened like this or as this, it's saying literal day, just like day is to be taken as a 24-hour day, not because the people that make the argument for evolution within Genesis say that it's talking about eons. So you could have an indefinite amount of time in between each day, and then you could fucking put anything you want in there. You know what I'm saying? Which I think is plausible. I do think it's plausible, but when I do read Genesis, it does feel to me this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, rather than like when you read about there's a creation, I don't know if it's Hindu, but it's like a myth story of a crow that was carrying this huge thing of water. It's a flood story, and like it accidentally dropped it, but it uses these words of like similes, metaphors, something that is like this. I don't know. That would be the argument that I've seen, but I also agree that if it's taken as analogy, then God made human life, and we can look to science to see when that human life was created. Yeah. About 2 million years ago, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting that if you do take the Genesis 1 to be more like a parable, then you are initially also going to go back to science. That is an interesting thought, because it is true. Yeah, man, I think that there's something to what you're saying, where it's like the word day in Genesis literally, like if you go to the Strong's definition, means 24-hour time period. And then people also talk about the gap theory that
Yep.
between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2 that there was 2.1 billion years or however many, I don't know.
Right.
That allowed the earth to develop and whatnot. Yeah, I just think that Genesis is the easiest to debate. I think that's what I'm getting at. Where it's like, I
Absolutely.
definitely see what you're saying, where it's
Absolutely.
like, this is what the book is saying. But
Yeah.
I think that subsequently, Genesis is also the easiest one to kind of go, I don't know. It's kind of up in the air because back then, like, they didn't really have narrative and nonfiction
Mhm.
when it came to theological writing. It was kind of a mix of the both.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
so I don't know, but I can definitely see what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, and so that's the thing is that everyone is going to take this book differently.
Mhm.
And but that's the thing though, is that you get into, let me pull this up, the Logos Bible software. I got this right here.
Well, do you want to go into like the pillars of the earth before we go
Ooh,
into
yeah.
Logos? Because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that really,
That's a really good one, I think.
so far we've determined that God created a firmament. He created the heavens and the earth.
Yep.
Created water.
Yep.
That he separated the water with a firmament from
Yep.
the waters below, from the waters above. And I think we just went into something else too, where God is and where all of the heavens are.
Yes.
So we've gone into all of those. So what does the Bible stand on? Is it moving? Are we the center of the universe?
Well, so that's an interesting question. If when science claims we are a ball spinning in space, that's great. If I have a book that says something different, I can't claim that they're both saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which one is true. I would assume that we're on a ball spinning. That's all. That's what I know. That's from what from everything that I've been raised to know. So, but
And that's the widely
therein lies a
accepted-
problem. Yeah,
widely
lies a
accepted.
problem right there. Okay, so the foundations. So again, I have pressed this on some Christians who are fairly deep in this shit, and this is all analogy. That's what they say. It's all analogy. There's no foundations that this thing is sitting on. So my big thing is, there's standing. No, we'll get to those ones. But so we have two different things. There's the pillars of earth and the foundations of earth. So for a little bit of context, and the channels of the sea appeared, the foundations of the world were discovered at the rebuking of the Lord. Okay? Where was thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? So, and that could just be the ground. That doesn't have to be an enclosed system. But again, taking into consideration all of these are under this solid dome, with the context, it's a little different. Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Okay, so that's a word that's like, okay. But again, you could just say, well, the plate tectonics are all tightly together, and so they're fastened together. Okay. But that's, again, with no context of what the sky actually is. So it's a lot of talk about laying the foundations, and that the foundations are fastened onto something. So then Job 9:6, talking about, I can't remember what it was talking about, but shaketh the earth out of her place, and the pillars thereof tremble.
Mm-hmm.
The pillars of heaven tremble and are astonished at his reproof. The pillars of heaven actually make sense if you have a solid sky. That
Yeah.
there's pillars that hold up. It's not a literal white pillar like someone would imagine on like a building.
Right.
It's a pillar just means a support.
Mhm.
So to support something.
But if you have a strong firmament,
Exactly. If you have a
then you
sky
can
that
have a
needs
pillar of
supporting, and if the earth is shaking, then the pillars of heaven might shake. And he bears up the pillars of it. And then this one right there. The pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he hath set the world upon them. Set feels you place something on it, and then it's there. You know what I'm saying?
and pillars seems definitely different from foundation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because although I agree with you where it's not necessarily like big white poles or whatever, it's definitely something that the foundation sits on.
Yes.
It's definitely
exactly.
something that
Yep.
holds something up.
Yep. Right. It's holding something. And so there's also another quote. It's in Job. I can't remember the exact one, but it says that the world hangeth on nothing. And that was this Christian pastor in Idaho Falls, his proof that the earth was in space. He says, look right there. Something's floating. It's not hanging on anything. but I've done some just grammar research on like sentences and like affirmative sentences and negative sentences. And to make a sentence negative, you end it with a negative. And so if you say, it's almost like a math equation. If you say something positive at the beginning and then you say something negative, you're negating the positive. You see what I'm saying? So if like I want nothing, I don't want anything.
Yeah.
Because even though the positive or the affirmative in that is want, it's negated by nothing, by the negative. So for something to hang on nothing literally means that it's not hanging on anything. It's not hanging. It's not doing that thing. The thing, the affirmative that it's saying it's doing, it's not doing that. It's negating the hanging.
Right.
And so you have a negative sentence because you have something that's not hanging, just like this table. Absolutely, this table is not hanging on anything.
Mm-hmm.
And if I said that these lights were not hanging on anything, I'd be lying to you.
Right.
Because they're hanging on something. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was a really interesting one too, is that when you start to develop all this context of pillars, foundations, a firm sky, telling us literally where God is and where he descends from and ascends from, and ascends to, it starts to look different than what science is telling us the world is. That's all I'm saying.
It seems like you're getting a linear Earth. And I don't know if linear is the right word, but you're getting an Earth that has a bottom,
Yes.
and then something that builds, and then something that's at the top.
Yes.
And you have something that like goes in a line almost.
Exactly. And so now that you say that, I'm going to bring logos up if I can know how to work it, dude.
Do you have logos downloaded on your laptop or your computer?
Yeah, this is what it is right here.
So Logos is like it's a software, but it's a biblical software, right? It's like
Yes.
The-
it's like thousands of dollars to get the pro.
that's crazy.
And
It's like collection of writings, or is it like
of sermons, writings, hyperlinked articles to send you every which way, and just like study after study after study after study. It's very encompassing and very in depth.
interesting?
And I'm really trying to find this shit.
I think
Right
you
there.
could find it on Google for sure. Because that is the crazy part, is like when you talk about the biblical universe, it's not like, a lot of people think that the idea of flat Earth, and I don't even know if that's what Cougar and I are saying, is that the Earth is inherently flat. But like the idea of flat Earth, a lot of people just think, oh, well, that's just something that just got created, to like 100 years or 200 years. Or a lot of people will say that flat Earth is derived out of privilege. Like that you're so privileged that you don't really have to like deal with life, and you can think about like, well, maybe we're not on a ball.
Right.
Like
Interesting. I've
yeah.
never heard that before. That's very interesting.
a lot of people will like say things like that, but when you look at the Bible and when you look at the biblical universe, you can kind of see that for a long time, and I mean we've known this throughout history, that we didn't understand the Earth to be a ball, and we didn't understand the Earth to be a planet. That we thought we were geocentric with the Earth being the center of the universe.
Yep, exactly. And so that's the thing. This will be easier if I just bring it up right here. But this is what it is right here, and that's exactly what you were saying, is that there's levels. So it's not relative. Up is the same for everybody.
Yeah.
Down is the same for everybody. Something that comes down is the same for everybody.
And that's why you'd be able to see Jesus descending if
Exactly.
this is the case.
And that's where, if he's on the ground and he ascends into heaven, where's he going? Where the fuck is he going?
Exactly.
Really? Like, is he at one point, like if you literally think about it, is he at one point just kind of like evaporate into the fourth dimension? Or like it says he ascends into heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it always going into the sky? And why is it saying that God is above that and that's where he's going? You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm wanting to point out here.
And can you bring this graphic back up?
Yes, sir.
Maybe this is something we can get into as well. This is saying that everything exists within the firmament.
Exactly.
Our sun, our moon,
stars,
clouds, earth, sea, everything.
Yep.
Outside of heaven and God and the depths and the pillars.
Right.
Everything that we see, the Bible claims, is in the firmament.
Yep. And so that's also something that Christians run into in Genesis, is that it says the earth is older than the sun, moon, and stars. And says that the moon and sun, or I guess the sun is older than some stars. The moon is older than the stars as well. And that's not true. And so again, for any reconciling of the Bible, we would have to exist in a completely different world than we actually do, because this takes into account the waters above. This is the throne where God resides. Sheol is down here. Foundations of the earth.
What's that gate of God at the top by the firmament? There's
Windows.
a gate of heaven. There's a gate of heaven right above the sky.
Oh, right here.
Gate of heaven. That must
Gate
be
of heaven.
where they believe Jesus went through.
Right, that must be. Yep, exactly. And I'll have to look that up. I've never heard that term. I haven't even.
And that could also be like the floodgate of heaven as
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
because the waters are right above.
And they have windows and doors of heaven right here, and that makes sense to have you don't have a door on something that's not solid. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
A door allows something to come through, and the reason it couldn't come through before is because there was something solid around it that wouldn't allow you to go in, just like a house.
Do you have any verses that talk about like the sun and the moon being inside of the firmament?
Yes.
Because I think that would be important, because a lot of people are going to be questioning that.
Yes.
And I think it's a good place to go. Well, what does that mean for space?
Because right here, it talks about how he created a tabernacle for the sun and the moon and the stars to be within. Which right here, it might not be the moon and the stars, just for the sun. Yeah. So this is Psalm 1-6, and we're actually going to start right on 4.
Psalm 19.
Oh, Psalm 19, thank you. Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tabernacle for the sun. So what's a tabernacle? You know what a tabernacle is?
It's like a building.
Exactly. It's a tent, pretty much.
Oh, a tent, huh?
Yep.
Like something that would be over it.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Something that would encase it. Right there. That's a tabernacle.
Huh.
So the sun is in a tabernacle. God has set a tabernacle for the sun. From the end of the heaven,
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
and then unto his. And then this is another quote of talking about the sun. His is talking about the sun. So they say that the sun is he, moon is she, and the sun has his circuit.
Like moving.
Yep.
Like it's
It's
moving.
on a circuit above the earth. And so again, that would you can easily reconcile by saying, oh, they just thought that the sun moved, and it didn't. The earth was the one that's moving. Like, okay, well then they are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's weird how people can say, well, there's no errors, but I know they say that, and that is wrong, but it's not wrong. It's like, well, again, you don't have to say that this is wrong, but you have to come with a different worldview, because they don't align the science and Genesis account. They just don't.
Yeah.
So, sun is a he, moon is a she. And that's really important, because everything is within that. Also in Revelation, they talk about all the stars falling from the sky to the earth. And I'm going to predict that other than the sun, which I don't think the sun could fall to the earth. And again, if the sun is a star and stars are that big, how could more than one star fall to the earth? Again, if they didn't know what they were talking about and it was going to be meteors, then okay, then they don't know what they're talking about. They say the stars will fall to earth, and if the stars are fixed lights within the firmament, they could easily fall to the earth. They can't fall to the earth if they're millions of light years away and way bigger than the earth. And so that's another thing that from what I understand, the Bible's not saying that the stars are bigger than the earth.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I can understand that. And it's also saying, like you're saying, that they probably believed that the stars were a lot closer
Absolutely
to us than they really are.
They're in the they're within that firmament.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it's kind of saying that, I mean, if you go a step further than that, that the same sky you see in the day is the same sky that you see at the night.
Yep.
And it's just, I don't know how to describe what I'm trying to say, but like that it's the same amount away. Like what you see a bird flying overhead, because the star is so bright, that it's obviously close as well. And that they're small, but they're close.
Right.
Instead of being very far away
And very big.
and large.
Right, exactly. So it's literally the exact opposite of what science is telling us.
Yes.
And again, science only has a little speck like that big of what a star looks like. And then a machine to read what gases are being emitted from it, and then they develop an idea from that. So like, okay, that's great. They could be right, but damn, I have a lot of faith for them.
For anyone who doesn't know, about a month ago, probably a month and a half at this point, the NASA came out with these really ridiculous, beautiful looking.
Fuck, dude,
they were beautiful, like pictures of the sky, and like it's like all of the. Do you know what it was? Like different galaxies and stuff.
If you hold up a piece of rice to the sky, they took a picture of that big of the piece of sky, but they zoomed in on it so heavy.
Wow.
And they shot a satellite. I think it was 1 million miles away from Earth now, and that's what they're able to pick up.
That's crazy. But
that is crazy.
The crazy thing about that is they didn't get any pictures, right?
Yep.
Like you sent me an article. Do you know what it's called? The James
Webb? Is it? No, Webb's. No, yeah, that might be James Webb.
JW.
Yeah, JW. I think so.
Something
Hell
like
yeah.
that. James Webb Telescope.
Yeah. I'm double checking that. I think that's right.
But Cougar sent me an article where it's like even NASA was talking about how they don't get like pictures, they get data points. And based off of those data points, that kind of allows them to know like where to put things. Is that right?
Yeah.
Like definitely what colors to color things
Absolutely.
in with.
Yep.
But like where each of those stars are as well.
Yep. And what's like, you know, because it makes sense, the intensity and of a light, if one's more intense, it's closer, blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of nuance of intaking data because, again, they're sending it's not a picture because they're not taking a snapshot and then texting it to NASA.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that, and it can't work like that being 1 million miles away through space. So they have to really consolidate the information to literal bare bones data so they can get this shit back. Because again, if they took a fucking 4 gigabyte video, what are they going to do with it? They can't do shit with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it's not that it's fake. It's that there's a lot more faith that goes into, damn, these guys better know what they're doing to be jumping to these conclusions and coloring these vibrant, gorgeous fucking colors. Okay, that's great. But damn, like I have to take faith in that artist that he made a rendition that is similar to something that is hundreds of millions of light years away.
And it probably isn't. Just based off of the fact that there are so many more colors. Like if you go off of the modern scientific view, there's so many more colors that are in space with the ultraviolet and infrared color spectrum that we have to dumb it down in order to be like, wow, that's so beautiful. Like we don't really even know. And my thing with it is, you know, I'm more susceptible, I think, to believe that we're on a ball, I guess, or just like trust science. But I still have a heavy distrust of science because I believe that we've seen science be bought and sold.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of where my wariness comes in, where I go, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like if you throw someone enough money, they're kind of willing to fudge.
Well, why were scientists recommending cigarettes back in the 50s?
Because it was something with the cannabis. I mean, I know that they got bought, but like, weren't they also trying to say that cannabis was bad so the tobacco industry was paying them more as well to be like, weed is bad and tobacco is good. Yeah.
And so it's
talked about weed on two episodes in a row. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
But that just shows that those scientists didn't give a fuck about anyone's health. They were just down for whatever. And so a scientist can become a celebrity. Look at Fauci. And now they're not really a scientist anymore. They're an influencer, and they have to behave like an influencer. And again, like, you have to put a lot of faith in these people, and these people are not, according to this book, human beings are flawed and jealous and angry and spiteful. And so, like, I'm all those. I don't expect Fauci to not be. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely.
I don't expect these people who have a lot of power, just because they have a lot of power doesn't mean that they're any better behaved. They actually probably could do some shit that I couldn't even pull off if I wanted to misbehave. So that's just, and I don't think that Fauci is trying to put this plot together to make me think the earth is flat. But I do think that science can be bought. Science can be manipulated. I think that if we look at COVID, I'm just going to say it right here, man. I really think that, you know, like the push of the vaccines, again, if you wanted to get a vaccine, I think you have every right to. But the push of them so early on was very weird. And it was like this whole cult thing of like, we'll just believe the science, capital T, capital S, the science. And it's like, well, shit, the science, I thought we were supposed to be skeptical to the science always because science is always changing. But here's the thing. If you get your morality from science and science is always changing, what kind of morals do you have? gets sticky there.
Changing morals.
It gets sticky there. Exactly. And so I would also say that if this crazy theory is true, that 99.999% of people have no idea. The people that look up into space and take pictures and develop theories and develop ideas, I don't think that they're like, oh yeah, we're tricking everybody. I really don't think that. I think it would be a very important piece of information. But again, like if a scientist that worked for somebody came out and said, yeah, oh yeah, the earth is flat, and I totally know that, we've proven it with all this blah blah blah, would we believe him?
Mm-hmm.
Most people wouldn't, because there has been some scientists that have said that, and they're crazy. They don't have a job anymore.
But they're almost looked at as heretics.
Yes. Yep. They are almost looked at as heretics.
Pretty much looked at as heretics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's blasphemy. Yeah. So that's where we're at with the biblical universe.
And for me, man, like when we really look at the players of science, just like we need to look at the players of the Bible, which we'll do in following episodes as well.
Absolutely.
But when you look at the players of science, really what affirmed absolutely that we are on a globe, I would say, would be the going to the moon in 1968.
100%.
Right.
100%.
And when you look at Operation Paperclip, you start to realize who was the founders and the runners of NASA, and it was a lot of people who were ex-Nazis from Germany. And you had brought this up to me, and you said, well, why would you believe those people? And I was like, well, because they want the best for, society and humanity, and for us to, and we all want to, continue on society. Like, we don't really want us to go backwards, but there is, I would say, undeniably truth that people want hidden from you throughout governments.
Absolutely.
And whether the Nazi scientists were trying to trick, including our government, or they brought those scientists in because they were more susceptible to lying and to just doing what they're told.
Oh, they knew what they were doing, I feel like.
Absolutely. You know what I mean? But I don't know if it's the government or if it's just the Nazis. Because I feel like the Nazis, bringing them in, they could just be like, well, let's just confirm that.
But where does the trust for the U.S. government come in?
Where does that distrust come in?
Where does the trust come in? That they would be the good guys that got tricked.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I would trust them. I'm just saying I could see both scenarios. You know what I mean? And once we went to the moon, and then they were looking back, and they had all those, videos of being like, oh, this is, 3 days from the moon or whatever.
Yep.
And then we landed. The craziest part about the whole moon race and everything to me, other than the fake footage of us going to the moon, other than the weird ass press conference that they had after the moon where all of the astronauts were like, yeah, we went and look at these rocks that we found. They're really cool.
Like, they were not excited at all.
No. And dude, if I had seen the Earth from
bro,
the moon,
I was on the fucking moon. Yeah,
I'd be like, listen, you could do all the psychedelics in the world. You're never seeing this shit ever
take
again.
The trip like I did, bitch. Yeah, exactly.
But when we went, Russia and China were the other people who were vastly in competition with us to go to the moon.
Yes.
And they congratulated us. Now, when America does something that's amazing, I think Russia and China are two of the quickest people to say, no, you didn't do that.
Fuck you.
Didn't do that. We did it first. We did this. The fact that everyone is so unified on us doing that really, to me, says that there is a higher level chance of conspiracy.
Well, so can I push on that a little bit further with that?
Sure.
There is a treaty, and this gets into the outside of the Bible talking about flat Earth, but there is a treaty that was put together in the 50s. Yeah, late 50s, I think. And it was this treaty between 10, 15 different countries where they all were like, oh yeah, Antarctica has no military value, and so we'll all respect it, and we won't go there, and we want to take care of the environment. That was one of the things. And it's you're gonna try to convince me that our 1950s government gave a fuck about the environment? That they gave a fuck about the environment?
Yeah.
Really? There's no way. There's no way that we just got out of 2 world wars, and how much environment took a hit because of that war. Look at the fucking nukes that we dropped. We don't give a shit.
I don't think they really understand how much damage they were doing.
Right. True.
So they wouldn't have cared because they would have just been like, fuck it, we're just bombing everything.
yeah, dude. Like, yeah.
Earth's going to be around forever. So
Yep. And so, shit. What was my point before that?
there was a treaty that they signed.
The treaty.
about Antarctica.
So there's this weird alliance of like, oh yeah, the 50s, we didn't give a fuck about the environment at all, but Antarctica. We all got together and made sure that place was safe. Why?
Because they're like,
Why?
well, in 40 years, global warming is going to be a big thing. So we need to make sure we take care of it now.
Fuck you, Al Gore.
Clearly you didn't. Clearly you didn't.
Bro, Al Gore, when he almost won, he said that in 15 years, the oceans were going to be like 30 feet higher. And all these people were going to die, and that we should be so scared, and we have to vote for him so we can do all these things for new taxes so we can pay for this. None of that shit's happened, bro. The earth is getting warmer sometimes, getting colder in other places. Do you think that we give give ourselves too much credit for our impact on the world? Because I think that we damaged it and raped it to a huge extent, but to an extent where it's what like AOC would make it sound.
Mm-hmm.
That like, well, she said some shit like in the next 5 years, the fucking world would end if we didn't get our greenhouse gases under control.
Yeah.
With all behind the new green bill or whatever.
Yeah.
That's trillions of dollars, right?
I think Tim Dillon was the first person to say
She's
this.
so beautiful.
She's beautiful. That's absolutely true.
Shout out AOC.
She's also the leftist Trump. She's literally like
Facts, bro.
She's literally like the Trump of the left. So
Grab him by the dick. Grab him by the dick.
No, I think that she would still say grab him by the pussy. But like, I don't give a fuck about what she says.
Yeah.
But back to your point about like how much do I think we damaged the earth? That's a hard thing for me to say because I'm no scientist. I don't know.
Right.
But I've always kind of thought like, obviously, like you said, we're damaging it. We're not doing good things.
Yep.
And that's kind of what humans do.
And the majority of that are governments and corporations.
Absolutely. I mean, you still have a carbon footprint being a
Totally.
person, but I think it's something crazy like for a plane to fly from one end to America to the other is like more pollution is emitted in that than like everyone driving. It's some crazy statistic like
Wow.
that. It's wild,
Did you
man.
see
Like
Taylor Swift's little controversy of using like 5 like megatons of fucking fuel a year with her private jets and shit?
wow. Well, I can't imagine, dude. And think about how many other celebrities do that. There's a lot of celebrities that only fly PJs.
Yeah. Well, bro, go ahead, and then I have something.
Andrew Tate, continue.
Well, I was just gonna say that I went and saw the Lumineers in Boise, and when we were done, we left and we were walking through the back, like on the back side of the building. Bro, they had 17 semis.
Oh my!
All running. They're loading the stage and all the shit up in there. They have 6 tour buses that they're all getting on and shit. And it was like, holy fuck, they are using a lot of energy. That's great. I don't want them to stop. But again, it gets into people guilting the common man when shit like that is happening. So you'll have T Swift get up, global warming, and then go get on her private jet and leave. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get quicker of a hypocrisy than that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. I think we definitely are damaging it, but I've always kind of been very wary, even in my very leftist days when I was very pro-left, whatever.
when you were out in the streets.
When I was out in these streets, I always kind of thought that like the pictures of being like, this is the earth now, and it's like, you know, beautiful, and it's a CGI picture of what we think the earth looks like, put together by Nazis, but it's all good.
They have our best interest.
And it says this is what the earth will look like in 80 years, and it's just brown and gross and looks like it's like the world from Wall-E, you know? I always went, nah. Like, and I have no basis to put that on. So it could.
Absolutely.
But for me, I was always just like, dude, do you understand? And I don't even understand how long humans have been doing this, you know?
Yep.
If we already started to see like massive residue into the earth literally becoming brown, sounding so stupid right now, but there's nowhere that I look on like the earth when they make the earth that they go, it's brown.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I don't know. I've always kind of thought, I've believed in global warming, but I've been like, it's probably a lot later than we think.
And that's the thing is like, okay, if we throw $1 trillion at something, is that going to fix everything? And then are we going to trust our government entity to take $1 trillion and use it wisely and accomplish something with it.
Right.
Again, that's a lot of faith in our government that we would take a tax increase, and AOC is all about that for some reason. That harms regular people when we have to pay more money for some arbitrary thing that we don't know if it's going to work or not. But shit, if it's for a virtuous reason, then let's just throw I'll throw your money at it. I'll take your money and throw it at it all you want. You know what I'm saying? Well, but my money, let's talk about that, you know? So
Absolutely.
that's it. The world is up for interpretation of what we should do, where we are, who we are, what we should do about everything. And yeah, again, like this book is saying something that this place isn't. And so if this place was created by God, I'm not worried of us like ruining it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not ours to ruin.
Absolutely.
It's just like we get to be here, but like it's not. That's the thing. When we say humans are going to literally destroy the earth, we're putting ourselves on a God level.
Yeah.
Because God can destroy the earth.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can. We could try, but damn, bro, we dropped some fucking nukes, and I mean, like, Hiroshima's already back, bro. You know what I'm saying? They're bumping.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of places that get bombed. I think Chernobyl is like one of the very few people that got bombed with like nuclear bombs and is still like you can't go there. But even then,
I think they also had a leak too, and so it had like a concentrated amount coming from it. So
yeah, but Russia went in there and they're doing shit.
Right.
Like Russia went in there and they were like, yeah, we're going to be here. And you actually started to see the radiation levels rise around Chernobyl when they did that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like that shows that like there's still people in there working. So it's like what was kept there. I don't know, man. It's a lot, but I definitely agree where it's like if God created the earth and if the Bible is true, then we should have no worry about ruining the earth because God will come down inevitably before that.
Yeah, I don't think we can get to a point of no return. I think we are put here to take care of the garden that we've been like allowed to exist in, but I don't think we have enough power to maintain what has been created, but we don't have enough power to take it away. You know?
Right.
That's God's work. We can't do that.
My thing is, and I wish I kind of brought this up on the last episode, because there's a lot of people who do believe that we are gods.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I used to think that.
Yeah. So it's like if we have these nuclear bombs that the theory is that everyone has enough that if they just push buttons or whatever, that the entire earth is going to go down. Do you think that inherently makes us, I mean, not inherently, but do you think that gives us godlike power?
It gives us supernatural power, I would say. You know, like I think a gun to like a Native American back in the day, the first Native American to be shot by a gun, that was probably like someone getting a fucking stick and whirling it around and someone dying. You know what I'm saying?
Doing magic.
So it's definitely obviously like a step up from a regular human's impact. So godlike in the sense of the world, if you can fucking wipe out millions of people, hundreds of millions of people, then that's getting pretty close.
But you still need other things that you created to do that.
What do you mean?
Like you couldn't just wipe out the world just by going, you're dead. Just by your thoughts.
Just by my word. Right, exactly. Yep. I would need to use a lot of God's tools to have me be able to do that.
Right.
And then I'll have to live with the consequences of whatever I do. But yeah, it's not our world to destroy, I don't think. But if it's just science and like we're just here accidentally and shit, then like I think maybe we could destroy it. That's what science is.
And we're
telling
probably
us.
the closest thing to gods.
Absolutely.
If that's the case.
So then it's on us to fix everything, and we can't. That's the trick of the trade, is like all these people out here are doing this shit, and you can't. You have these virtuous statements, and like if I just said I'd love to end world hunger, and you're like, dude, you're such a good guy for saying that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's all.
Yeah,
that's what people rely on to acquire status, is to say things that have no consequence on me. The people at the most consequence are the ones starving that I'm using to help myself. But like, I'm not gonna do anything about that. I can't. Am I gonna end world hunger tomorrow? No, fuck no. But fuck, I could sure pretend like I really want to, and people may like me a little more for that. So that's the nuance. There would have to be a lot of secrecy going on if there was any sort of other world that we lived in. The Bible says that that's possible. So that's another interesting thing, is that there is an adversary that would like us to not think that, or to know where we actually are. So that's the thing. If I wanted to confuse you and bring you to your knees, and I could snap my fingers, and you have dementia, you have no idea where you are, what could you do? You'd be powerless against me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I could trick you into thinking that I have a gun, then I have power over you, even though I don't have a gun. It's not real. If I can get you to believe it, then there's a level of control that I can have over you.
Mm.
And so you're like, oh, fuck, he's got a gun. I don't know what he's going to do with it. It's just the idea of a gun gives me control. The idea of being in complete nothingness, a speck on a speck on a speck on a speck on a speck, like Horton Hears a Who type shit. You can start to see a pattern of logical reasoning when you take all of this science in to say, yeah, fuck, it's just an accident. We're all just here out of happenstance.
Mm-hmm.
And if you happen to have this belief in God, like, okay, great, but like, this is happenstance. That then leads to you're meaningless, you have no purpose, and you're only worth as much as your culture says you are. So if your culture all majority voted that you were worthless and they wanted to kill you, then who are you to say that they shouldn't do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not wrong. They're just not objectively correct. So it's tough, man. The interpretation of everything, preconceived notions, what notions we want, where we want to put our faith. It all comes down to faith, though. We always say that. Every fucking conversation comes back to, who do you have faith in because you don't know anything?
Mm-hmm.
You can know some things, but when we get to the big questions, it's you're going to put your faith into someone or something because you can't know. I can't. If I said space is real, bro, and you said prove it, what am I going to do? Show you a picture. I can show you a picture of a flat earth. I can show you a picture of anything. I can show you a picture of a dragon that looks real. Does it mean it's real? No. Could easily be manipulated. So like there's evidence for it. There's no proof.
Mm-hmm.
Unless we can get in a rocket ship with Elon and go up there.
Do you think that the thought that we don't have the same, and I don't know how long we've been doing this, but the thought of us not having the same weather or not seeing the same skies would inherently kind of say that we're on not necessarily a flat plane, like a flat Earth.
For if we see different skies?
Yeah. So like the sky that's in England right now is dark, right? And it possibly could be rainy.
Right.
And here it's bright and sunny.
Right, which are two different skies.
Two different skies.
Right.
Do you think that would speak more to the fact that we're probably not on something flat? Because if we were on something flat, then everything would kind of be the same all the time.
Right. Well, it would just be perspective, because if this thing is so big, where you go, it would be a different perspective of the sky. You know what I'm saying? Like even if it was a jumbotron in a NBA ceiling, that was the entire sky. Where you're sitting dictates how it looks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I've heard that too, where it's like if you draw a 9 on this ceiling above us, I'm going to see a 9, but you're going to see a 6.
Exactly.
Because of your perspective.
Yep.
But I feel like if we're talking about specifically a flat Earth, which is what I'm trying to say, is that I don't really know. I don't want to go out and be like, we're definitely on a flat Earth, we're definitely on a ball, because again, I don't know.
Right.
I have to put my faith in something.
Right.
But I definitely can say that if it's flat, then there's going to be a time when the entire Earth is dark.
Why is that?
Because if you have something flat,
right,
and I have, this is the sun.
Yep.
And it goes around like this.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think it does that.
That's what I'm saying too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, is that whatever, I mean, they probably believed it was flat because that's what makes the most sense.
Right.
But the fact that it goes like this, I think definitely, like the fact that there's not a time when the entire Earth is dark,
once
to
it's
me,
under, everything would be dark.
Exactly.
Right? Well, go ahead.
And to me, that's kind of what makes me go, okay, even though everything is about perspective, and I agree with that, the time zone difference would probably only be a couple of hours.
Right. Well, so we have to take into consideration the moon and the sun would be the same case as the stars. So they're not as big as we think, and they're a lot closer than we think. And so when it's talking about it's on a circuit on the Earth, we still have this concept of like revolving, but we can see that it's going like this. You know what I'm saying? That's what the claim is. So the ground is right here. So instead of doing this, it's going, the sun and moon are up here, just as well as the stars are right here, the dome moving. You see what I'm saying?
So it's not necessarily moving around us, it's moving above us.
Exactly. So if we refer back to our little thing right here. Oh, right here. They're moving, like the sun would come towards us and then go around. You see what I'm saying? They'd go like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And so
Interesting.
there's no room for it to go under. It would go into the water or
Yeah.
hit the tabernacle. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So that's just what someone would say.
No, I see what you're saying, but yeah, I don't know, man, because the sun just seems to move like across the sky.
Absolutely, bro. You
from
watch
east
it
to west.
though. Like if you take pictures of it and you fucking watch it all day, I've watched it and it's like, holy shit, that thing just looks like it is just going right over us. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And it's all perspective. And so just because I think that doesn't mean it's true, but
Yeah.
it's weird. The
But
world's weird, bro.
It's definitely true that the people of the ancient times, people of the Bible, definitely believed in a different world than what we understand today.
Yes. Yes.
And my contribution to this podcast will be the four corners
yes.
terminology that you find throughout the Bible. The Bible talks about spreading the gospel to the four corners of the earth, four corners here, four corners there.
Yep.
And even in Revelations, I don't know the exact verse, but they say go to the four corners of the earth, where it's like they're talking about I think God is talking to the archangels of heaven, which there's four of them, and he says, go to the four corners of the earth, all of you, the south, the north, the east, and the west. So they lay out like what is, and I don't have the verse right in front of me, but they lay out like what those corners are.
Right.
So to me, I kind of think that they believed in some sort of diamond.
Yes. Well, and so I could try to find a picture that is exactly what you're talking about.
Because there's a north, south, east, and west. So so the lines, the borders would be almost like diagonal, leading to the next corner.
Right. Exactly. If you just turn that towards us.
Putting my glasses on like old Greg.
Oh.
Square and stationary earth.
And that takes into effect the four corners. And then there's also the circle of the earth right there.
Yeah, but see right here, the four corners they're saying is like a square. I don't believe that.
Well, because if you turned this corner in front of us, it would be a diamond.
It would be a diamond. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. You can make any. Well, can you make diamonds into squares?
I mean, it's just a sideways square, I feel like. But it looks like a diamond. I
I
guess.
feel like at that point you're getting into like rhombus territory.
you might be.
I feel like we're talking about shapes at this point, so it's probably best that we end this episode.
That was beautiful, man.
Thanks, bro. I really appreciate it. I mean, this was one of Cougar's first kind of things to me that he was talking about to be like.
Well, because the last time we did a podcast, I had not read the Bible. I had read I had seen verses, but I had not picked up a book and read it. And you said, dude, you should read it. You got to read it.
Well, dude, you were just talking about Jesus. You were like, man, since Jesus has come into my life,
Yep.
like I just feel so much closer. I feel better. I feel like I'm closer to the Spirit, and
look
like
what you
He's
did.
leading my way. And I went, have you read the Bible? And you go, no. And I went,
at all.
well, that's like the main book, bro.
Well,
Like,
and then, a month later I come back, bro, did you know that the earth is flat when it closed?
you're like, yeah, I've been reading the Bible.
Like, what? Yeah. Okay, go ahead though. Sorry.
No, man, nothing. I mean, just thank you for doing this, for bringing this to me, and having us talk about it, because I think
yeah.
it's a really important conversation, especially if I don't think, and this is something maybe we can wrap up on, is like whether you believe the earth is flat or not doesn't have anything to do with your salvation.
No.
It probably doesn't have anything to do with are you going to be saved. So it's like a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about is. A lot of it is
nuance.
philosophy, and it's nuance, and it's theory.
Yep.
And if you get too caught in the weeds on this shit, like there's a good shot that it's going to force you to sin, or it's going to cause you to sin, which the original meaning of sin is to miss the mark. It doesn't mean to sin against God or whatever. It just means that God has a certain way for you and you're missing the mark.
Yes.
And if you get too caught up in the weeds and the jumble of this, it can sometimes take away from your eyes. So if this podcast going on, causes you great turmoil, might be a good thing for you.
Yep.
But just remember that God is a great God. He's huge. He's massive. And that he has the ability to save you whether you believe in the flat earth or not.
Absolutely. It's no point of anything other than if we want to really analyze the text of this book, we can see where it leads. A lot of people hang out in the New Testament because the Old Testament's pretty tough and Genesis is very brutal. And just like you said, a lot of atheists say they love Genesis. They fucking love it. And pastors and Christians stay away from it. I want to be right in it. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't have any marriage to any. I was able to kind of kick my preconceived notions, which was amazing. But again, it really turns into when someone believes something, if they think that it makes them better than someone else, that's where you get into iffy territory, because now someone is less than me, and then I can do whatever about that I want.
Mm-hmm.
And just because someone believes, like I saw someone say that if you believe in the flat earth, you're a dangerous person to society. And it's like, yeah, you can criminalize someone who thinks a certain way, and then they're less than you. They're dumb. They're idiots. And it's very scary where you can go when the people against you are less than you, rather than your equal you're trying to contend with, they're less than you. And I mean, just look at our politics. That's all it is that you have to frame the opposition as less than human, so you can, you're just a misogynist racist who wants to, or you are just a baby murderer. We have to resort to taking them down so then we can be above them.
Right.
I don't believe in that. I want to have someone truly believe what they believe, and then I just want to hit them with questions. And I don't need them to change. I don't need them to do anything other than, if they want to, tell me about why they think the way they think. That's it. So just keep researching, keep studying. This is one topic that in the end, it doesn't matter. But if someone wants to sit down and tell me, take Genesis this way, you better watch out, because I will. You know what I'm saying? Like all the way through, not just until it gets uncomfortable.
Don't tell Cougar to read the Bible.
Don't tell me. Don't fucking tell me, or I might do it, and then we're in trouble. So, episode 2, baby.
Shoot, bro. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it. This has been Bible Secrets, the Biblical Universe.
Love you all.
Call it a special life, a special life. I'm thinking that's what this is.